this video, we are continuing with our Introduction to Elliott Wave series. And in the last session, we had seen these structures into impulse. Now, impulse is more or less this entire thing. So we don't have really time rules that we'll have in terms of correction. So we have only two structures, and there are a lot of other things that will come into play, and we'll look at it later maybe in the not so the other concepts are not very simple and straightforward. They are kind of one level up, or say an advanced set of concepts. We'll also look at wave extension somewhere later. So that part I'm not touching right away. Uh, Today, in this particular session, we'll start with our discussion towards correction. So we saw so far that we have one uh, impulse on one side, which is made of five waves, and we have an corrective which is moving in the opposite direction and has three waves, right? So this is one entire structure. So now impulse is more or less what we have seen. We have gotten introduced to it. Now we'll look at corrective, from where it starts, how it falls. For again, for a convention purpose, I'm showing in impulse in an upward move. That's not the case. Impulse is happening, or impulse is possible in the opposite direction, or when the markets fall, then also they fall with a very strong move. That also generally is an impulse. But for convention, we are just sticking to the same thing. So ABC, A will be a fall, B will be a rise, and C will be a fall again, right? So how do we start with it, or how do we measure this? Now before that, let's take one case. Before this ABC starts, definitely there is a part of an impulse. So let's call it wave 4, and let's call it wave 5 of the previous impulse, right? From there, from where basically this will start. So the first part, or the first rule of this correction is that when you put a retracement from 4 to 5, usually A of this entire structure is formed at around 61.8%. This is again a rule. It can't really fall till this part and then it will go. There is some kind of different structure that is there. So generally the A that is formed is around 61%. It can be formed slightly earlier. It can be formed a little later, in terms of 50%, but it generally is found around 61.8%. That's the rule. That's the first rule. Now this is where it brings us to two types of correction. I'll come to this terminology a little later. So we have two types of A, or two types of falls in this case, or two types of corrections in the simple correction that we are seeing. The first one is called zigzag, and the second one will be called as flat correction, right? So what's the difference? Basically, zigzag is where your A will have five moves. It will be an impulse, and it will be very sharp, very fast. So I'm just now focusing only on ABC here. Let's look at zigzag first. uh, when this ABC is getting formed, your A is formed usually uh, in response to a very strong move, very strong market sentiment, which is generally uh, negative if it is if we are showing correction to be forming at the downward trend. So it will have a very sharp fall, generally formed by an impulse. So A is formed by an impulse with five moves, and it's a very sharp fall. So generally, what are the typical examples? We may have, say, results of an election. We may have quarterly results or an annual result of a company. We may have, say, budgets, union budgets that the government declare. Second thing is, we may have some kind of geopolitical conflict somewhere. Some trade routes are blocked, or there is some attack on some other country, something like that. So in these cases, there is a very strong market sentiment and very strong pullback from the positions, because nobody wants to lose money. Or um, that's the thing. So this is happening from an event usually, and it will have a very sharp fall. So A will have five moves in this case. Similarly, when we see B will always be corrective. It will have three moves only, right? And then C also will have a very strong impulsive wave, right? So this is uh, zigzag correction. Now there are two parts to it. First thing we saw in case of impulse is that we have price targets. From this point onward, for correction, we have both price and time targets, right? So I'll just simply take this off for a while. Let's talk about price target for B. Now, when I put a retracement from the top to A, now B can have a very long value range, right? I'll come to that a little later. And B is the one which causes confusion in the most cases. The reason people say Elliott waves is complex, Elliott waves is something they don't understand, and there is a lot of confusion, etc. This is the cause. The cause is B, and B causes a lot of confusion because B has a very wide range. B can be formed at here 14%, can be formed at 50%, B can even be formed at say 100%, right? So B is where it gets a little complex. So generally the price range for B in zigzag correction will be somewhere from 14% to 38.2%. So B will not go high because why? Because A is an impulse, it's a strong sentiment or a strong emotion felt or a strong response to some event that is pulling the price down. It can't retrace 100% and again go further, so it will have a very limited limited move in the upward side. So B is generally at around 38%, right? And in the three moves. Now second thing also, we saw that there'll be time rules to it. So we'll talk about time rules. Say time to A is generally 38 bars. In this case it is 38 bars, and time to B is 39 bars. Usually this may be equal. It's around that. I won't say it is always equal. The time to B will always could be higher as well. So it's not that they are always equal, but they could be equal. And time to B, let's flip it around. Time to B is equal to time to A usually. It could be greater also. So time to B will always be equal or greater. And we also have a price which is 38% maximum. Okay, this was about B, right? Now coming to C, we will have a price target first, which will be given by extension from 0 to A to B. Now this can go from 61% to 161%, which is somewhere here. I'm not able to fit it in one single screen, so I'm just zoom out a little. So this is the range of C. It could start from 61 to 161, and that's how it is generally difficult to catch a bottom. I wouldn't say that it is impossible or anything, but because the range is very long, so this is a normal range for C. 61.8% to 161.8% is a normal fall you can expect in basic normal circumstances. If it gets extended, it can fall even further. So this is also possible, and you will see a lot of cases. You will see a lot of charts where the C has fallen below 161% as well. So let's take a very safe number. Say it goes till 100% for our representation here. Now this range for C was 61 to 161. Now what about time? Time is usually it will be it will be usually an addition. Okay, so they'll time to A and time to B, they're relative. So your time to C will usually be an addition. Say, let's say in this case it is 54. So it will be definitely more than time to B and time of A and time of B, but it is usually it could be an addition, right? So this is time rule for A, B, and C. Now the only difference between a zigzag and a flat, again I'll come back to this discussion, is the only difference between zigzag and a flat is that where the target of B for zigzag ends, there the target for B for flat begins. I'll explain. So the target maximum target for zigzag for B was 38.2%. For flat correction, it is usually around, it starts with 61%. It could go even at around 100 or even higher. Okay, so B is usually higher, and that's where the name comes from. This is like flat from the top. It has again come back to the same top again, and then from there it is falling down. So this is the name of it. This is why it is called flat. And flat correction is a general tendency of market. If markets are undisturbed, you will usually see a flat correction over a zigzag correction, because that's how the markets usually take time to correct and go. Everything else in terms of price and time targets, all of it will remain same for both zigzag and flat. And these are again the components of correction. So what we have seen so far is only a simple correction, where there is only one ABC, and then it is going to bounce back into an impulse again. Now, in certain circumstances, the simple correction is not enough. We get into a complex correction. Now, what are the complex corrections we are going to see in the next sessions? But a complex correction is like a combination of zigzag and flat. So there'll be, by as the name suggests, there'll be more than one corrections, and there'll be combinations of zigzag and flat correction. That is something we'll see in the next session. Thank you.